Hey everyone, Brandon Charleston here, coming at you with another Clay tutorial on all things AI. So in my experience, I've been tinkering and toying with other language models that compare to things like GPT, which has been fun. And so I'm here to show you just a little bit of maybe some use cases in which you might want to consider other large language models, also known as LLMs. And for that, let's get into it. So that said, what I did here, and just in case you haven't seen my previous videos, I compare use cases for things like Claude, Cohere, and things like that. I've actually added one more AI model here, also known as Mistral, and I'll go into that here in a second. So basically what I did is I created a Clay table, and all I did is populated several companies. Some are local, some are well known, like Clay, and then also some restaurants and some very popular ones, as we know here. And I went ahead and plugged in their website, although I did not use it in this case. Basically what I like to do is if you are using a non-integrated AI model, what you'll want to do is to create a formula square or column and basically make that your prompt. And so what that'll do is that will allow you to put in the variable into that. And simply all I do is put in the cell, quote, give me the top 3 competitors of insert variable here. Only give me the competitor names and nothing else in comma separated values. And you can see here that it populates the correct formula, in which case we're going to use that. So great. From here, obviously with GPT, you can just put in your prompt here, but in this case, I already did. So I'm going to use the same thing to make sure that it is consistent and fair and competitive. So as you can see, it spits out, the data here, in which case the prompt is the most appropriate. And for the most part, like always, it has performed and done pretty well on giving me the response that I want. Now, at the last part here, you can see that it did not give me the response that I want. In this case, Slackwater is actually a really good pizza joint here locally to me in Utah. And so obviously it did not give me that. So obviously that would need or require some additional formatting or prompting in order to get the correct result, right? And then Claude, moving on to Claude, like most of you guys know, is a very powerful and good competitor to GPT, and their API has been rolling out more recently, especially in beta, so access to that should be a little bit more widespread. And I definitely encourage you guys, as an alternate, or if you're wanting to tinker with alternative AI models, that Claude is really definitely a great candidate. I actually found many of you may have similar results, but I found Claude to be a little bit better when it comes to creative or maybe sort of creative responses where you're looking to get back some data that you may or may not be so specific on, but obviously GPT is the bee's knees, the most popular and the integrated one as of this recording on February 22nd, 2024. But nonetheless, with that said, it did pretty well. There was a couple instances where it did not perform, and so with that, obviously it would need more refinement. But it's definitely a good use case. I will say also, as of this recording, their rates are pretty comparable to GPT. As far as concurrent and rate limits, it's obviously subjective since things change by the day. But I don't believe, as of this recording, that they're, if you're running large lists, of like 500 to 1,000 or even more, GPT might be the best depending on your tiered plan, whereas Claude, it may take a little bit longer. So from there, Gemini is obviously Google's baby, formerly known as Bard. Google Gemini is a lot of fun, and obviously there's a lot of potential there since it is tied to Big Daddy Google. And obviously it did pretty well here. It basically performed on all of them as far as giving me the competitors in the context that I wanted to, which is comma separated. And when you go into it, you can see here that it really doesn't give me a whole lot other than it just makes sure, that it's not harmful or, any sort of crazy nonsense, right? But obviously it gives you the response you want. And for that, where is it here? There's the text, right? All right, moving on to Mistral. Mistral is a newer one that I went ahead and just recently toyed with. Mistral, its use cases is that it's a smaller learning or large language model, and also one of the cheapest. And the reason I say that is because, in some instances you may, especially if you're trying to keep costs down, if you're using Clay credits, it definitely might be cost effective to consider using something like Mistral. Or, let's say you want an alternative from the get-go and you want to explore different responses based on your use case. Mistral could be probably a decent contender to it. So obviously you can see it did well as well for all of them, except the last one. It didn't just tell me the three, but it did pretty well too. Mistral has 3 different models as of this recording. They have a tiny, a small, and a medium. And it's pretty similar to your GPT 3.5, your GPT-4, and your GPT-4 Turbo. Now, their pricing may be varied, but from what I can tell from their documents, it's a fraction of a penny. So it's pretty cheap. Whereas, OpenAI has their fraction of a penny, or if you're using GPT-4, when you shouldn't be, it gets really expensive pretty quickly, especially if you're running some big prompts and big lists. So, it might be worth exploring, different prices by tokens, right? So, yeah, that's really on that one. And then last but not least, just to make sure this video doesn't get too long-winded, but the interesting one that I continue to play with, and it's interesting because Cohere is a large language model that I would say compares to things like Claude. And the reason I say that is because Cohere not only does GPT and just AI responses of cleaning data and such, but the way it's designed also has what you call connectors, and one of those connectors is web search. And so what it'll do, it will go out just like Claude, and it will execute and actually conduct searches, and it will respond with those citations. Now, in some instances, especially in my tests with Claude, its intent is to reduce hallucinations, which is why it gives you citations and what it did and things like that, because it's more geared towards enterprise organizations like Notion and such. And so it wants to make sure that whatever connector that it has, that it is giving you information that is at its will, right? And so in talking to the Clay team, just toying around with it, I have found it, it's funny because it won't hallucinate. It'll be so confident and just say, this is the information and here's the research I did. And in some instances, it did better than Claude, where it was able to retrieve certain things. And then in a lot of cases, it actually compares very similarly to Claude, where I get the same result. And then there's some instances where it says, this is your answer, and I am very wrong, and I am confident, and here's the sources with that. So it's actually kind of funny. But the reason this is also good is because just like Claude, it'll give you citations, and it will tell you also the steps that it did. So you can see here, it did these are citations that it went off of, and this might not be, okay, so search queries. In some cases, it actually will pull snippets from different areas. And I've seen it even through LinkedIn, where it'll pull snippets from specific, let's see here. Maybe that's not a, so you can see web search. There was one of them here. OpenAI competitors. All right. And there's a connector. OpenAI. Okay. So some of those did not populate, but some of them some of them have some really good information in here. I'm just going off of it looks like I can't find it on this particular recording, but if you just break down the hierarchy, you will see actually where it gives you snippets of what it found on the website and why. And so that said, just might be worth toying around with, but I can tell you from what I've seen, there's usually in the search queries, it'll actually pull snippets on certain like pieces of the website. And so actually I think there's one here. Let's see here. Okay, yep, looks like it's not boding well for me here. Anyway, so you will see, you can't see, areas here where there are, like I said, snippets of information which could actually be fed into your workflows and as additional context, for whatever your use case is. And Cohere is definitely worth the look. So that said, this is the kind of the super AI or waterfall AI tutorial. As more AI models come out, I'm especially excited for Grok, and I'm not talking about Elon's Grok, although that would be awesome whenever their API comes out. But GROQ is currently in alpha, and so if any of you guys get the beta invite, definitely keep me informed, and I'm waiting for mine as well. So the thing about Grok, GROQ, is they are using, I believe it's called LRUs, where they're not using GPUs, graphic processing units, to do. So anyway, they claim to be the fastest competitor AI model. So it's essentially instant. And so that's pretty good because who can't, say more time. So anyhow, thanks for watching and happy claying. And let me know if anybody needs any help. Feel free to reach out. Thank you.